We visited the Little Bighorn Battle National Monument in Hardin, Montana in the fall of 2019. If you would like to get notices when I post again, be sure to subscribe right here. Just click on that button. This is the location of this park. It covers 785 acres in 2 different parts. The battle here was fought in June 25 and 26, 1876. About 280 soldiers and about 100 Indians died at this time. The park was established on January the 29th, 1879, and has about 300,000 visitors each year.
Take the next right.
And soon we're arriving at the Little Bighorn Battlefield National Monument. We'll be spending most of the morning there. After we park, we'll be exploring around the visitor center a little bit. This is really 2 parks connected together. Custard Battlefield, and then connected by road through the Crowe Indian Reservation to Reno Benteen Battlefield. We'll be looking at both. There's a national cemetery here for modern burials up through Vietnam, but it's full now. None of these are Custard soldiers. In 1868, the Fort Laramie Treaty with the Sioux Indians gave them the Black Hills, and they would move on reservations. 6 years later, in 1874, Lieutenant Colonel Custer led an expedition into the Black Hills to remove the settlers that had moved in there and to keep it Indian lands. He had about 1,000 soldiers and 600 wagons, along with many news reporters with him. One of his men started gold panning in one of the streams and found gold. Soon word got out, and pioneers and prospectors started pouring into the area, and Indian wars started. Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer graduated from West Point, and he was a Civil War hero, leading his troops in many battles. He had 11 horses shot out from under him, and was one of the main leaders in various battles, and was given credit for helping to win the Civil War. He will be in charge of the 7th Cavalry, and this is some of their equipment that they had. They were scattered from all over the world. In fact, 40% of them were foreign born. They were very poorly trained and only had 3 bullets a month in order to practice with their Springfield rifles, so they were very inaccurate shooters. His opponent will be Crazy Horse. He is a charismatic leader, not elected, and leads by example. He had a vision that said he would be invincible in battle and impossible to kill. He's going to be aided by Sitting Bull or Tanaka Tak. He's a medicine man who has a vision and leads the people spiritually. He participated in the sun dance ceremony and had a vision that the warriors would win a great victory. The Indian soldiers will be equipped with various types of guns that they can find, and bows and arrows. There is a huge Indian village gathered, about 6,000 to 8,000 people, about 2,000 warriors in this valley along the Little Bighorn. This is where the village was, almost 2 miles long, and up here was where the horse herd was. Let's look across this valley. It would have extended all the way across here on this green area with the horses across the main highway there. There were several different reasons that people have been trickling into this village for it to grow so large. First off, they were not being fed properly on the reservations, and they missed their food, and there was a large herd of antelope here. Also, Chief Sitting Bull was here, and he had great powerful medicine with his medicine dance. And lastly, they just wanted to go back to their old way of living and to ignore the reservations. Most probably realized this was the last time they were going to get to live free. In June of 1876, the American military sent 3 armies to bring them back to their reservations. From Fort Ellis went Gibbon. From Fort Fetterman, Crook with the largest force. And from Fort Abraham Lincoln came Terry and a man called Custard was second in command. Crook had the largest force with over 1,000 men. As he approached the village, Crazy Horse gathered an army of 1,000 warriors and attacked him at Rosebud Creek. He lost 57 soldiers that day, with many more injured. They shot over 30,000 bullets and killed only 13 Native Americans. But he claimed a victory because they left to go back home, and so he went back and started fishing. Crazy Horse and his warriors came back to the village and they had a great celebration. They had stopped the army and they had left. They saw that as a great victory. But now Custard is approaching from the east from Fort Abraham Lincoln. Terry has given him commands to act on his own judgment, and so he is now approaching the Indian village. His scouts caught sight of the village from the crow's nest here about 13 miles away, but when he went to look, he couldn't see the village and how big it was. They said, look for the worms in the grass, for those 18,000 ponies in the grass were squirming through it. There's still ponies here today, but he couldn't see them back then and had no idea of what he was running into. The park rangers give lectures on this battle, and let's let one of them tell us what happened now.
They're going to scatter. Doesn't matter if there's 5,000 warriors, they're going to run. He orders an immediate attack. He comes off the divide at 12:15. He orders Captain Frederick Benteen off to the south with 3 companies, 130 men. Benteen hates Custer's guts. Has no use for him. He questions his orders. General, if this village is as big as they say it is, we're going to need every man we've got. You have your orders, Benteen. Follow them. You're dismissed. Benteen hates Custer. Custer hates Benteen. Reno hates both of them. Reno and Custer come off the divide, 12 miles out, 7 miles out, 3 miles out to the river. The scout Gerard sees 60 warriors racing to the north. He screams out, "There go your Indians, General, running like the devil." Custer sends immediate orders to Major Marcus Reno, second in command. Major Reno, the village is just ahead. Move forward at as rapid a gait as you deem prudent. Pitch into anything, and you'll be supported by the whole outfit. Reno crosses the river. He cinches up his equipment, tightens the saddle girths, and charges down towards the village 2.5 miles beyond. He's got 140 men. Inside that camp, it's chaos. They didn't expect any battle. They just whipped George Crook a week before. How come a puny group of soldiers would attack such a big camp? They're caught off guard. The village criers scream out, "Ota! Ota! The chargers are coming! The Long Knives, the Blue Coats!" Old women hobbling on sticks, trying to get away. Young mothers racing around frantically trying to find their children who are swimming and playing. Inside the camp is Sitting Bull. He's 45 years old, too old to fight, but not to lead. He exhorts the warriors on. Brave up! Brave up! Strong hearts to the front, cowards to the rear. Ho-ka-hey! It's a good day to die. Young boys, 13, 14 years old, they roll around the village on horseback, tie sagebrush to the backs of their ponies' tails, and ride back and forth, creating a giant dust cloud. As Reno thunders down the valley floor, faster and faster and faster, at 500 yards, he knows 2 things. Number 1, the village is not running away. And number two, he's never fought the Sioux and the Cheyenne before. At 300 yards, he screams out, "Halt! Dismount! Form skirmish lines now! Fight on foot!" 140 soldiers attempt to ring in their horses at 30 miles an hour. Private Smith and Turley, two city boys, they can't even stop. They go right into the village. Their heads later found on poles. 138 men dig in. Every fourth man is a horse holder. He takes his horse and 3 others, pulls them off the battle line, back into the timber, away from the fire. Protect the ammunition packs. Now there's 90 soldiers, 5 yards apart, spread across that battlefield in skirmish line formation. And in 10 minutes, they'll face 1,000 warriors. The company commanders order volley fire. They take their big bore Springfield carbines, 45, 55 trapdoor. It shoots a big bullet. If it hits you, something's gonna fall off. They open the trap, drop in the cartridge, close the trap, cock the weapon, 90 guns, ready, aim, fire. Boom! 90 guns go off at once. The bullets rip into the teepee. Double cock. Open up the trap, kick out the spent shell, throw another one in. Close the trap. Ready, aim, fire. Boom! Another 90 rounds. The bullets crash into the teepees, dropping some of them on the ground. Inside the camp, there's a warrior named Gall. He's 6 feet tall. He weighs 250 pounds. His 2 wives and 3 daughters are killed by Reno's charge. When he found out, he said, "It made my heart bad, and I fought with a club." Gall, Crow King, Two Moon, Low Dog, they roar out of the village and slam into Reno. They drive him off the battle line. He falls back in along the river, sets up for a second stand. But now the warriors light the grass on fire. They snap buffalo blankets trying to scare the horses, and they shoot at the horse holders. Reno's feeling very uncomfortable. He finally screams out to the scout Bloody Knife, "Bloody Knife, what are the Indians going to do?" Boom! Bloody Knife takes a bullet right in the head. His hot brains and blood go all over Reno's face. Reno has a temporary stroke entitled post-traumatic stress syndrome. He barks out conflicting orders. "Mount! Dismount! Mount!" Guys are going up and down like yo-yos. And then he barks out the command, "Those who want to make their escape and live, follow me." He crashes out of the timber, races back towards the river crossing a mile beyond, other soldiers trying to catch up. It's a rout. There's no attempt to cover the retreat at all. Warriors right up next to the terrified soldiers and pump their Winchester rifles into the command. Boom, 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 boom! Two Moon said, "We mowed the soldiers down. It was like a buffalo hunt. We came up behind the soldiers, slipped our bowstrings over the soldiers' heads, jerked them off their horses, and pounded them with war clubs. We counted 2, which means to touch an enemy with a stick. You're not brave. Why are you here? You should have brought more soldiers. You better go back and get more. 40 men will die in this race with death through a gauntlet of hell." They get to the river crossing. Horses plunge off the bank, crash into the stream, flounder, and men drown. Warriors on top of the ridges rained bullets into the crossing. Folks, the river was red with blood. This was war. It wasn't cowboys and Indians. It wasn't John Wayne. It was war. Reno scratches and claws across the river, gets on top of the high ground 5 miles to the south of us. You can drive right to it. He is a fractured commander, and his battalion is whipped and demoralized. About 10 minutes later, Ben T comes up, rides up to Reno and snarls, "Where's Custer?" Reno says, "For God's sake, Ben T, halt your command and help me. I've lost half my men." Ben T's got a message in his pocket, a note. It's from Custer, delivered to him by Giovanni Martini, the Italian orderly of the day who cannot speak any English. He hands a note to Reno. It reads, "Benteen, come on, be quick. big village, bring packs. P.S. Bring packs. Neither one of those officers is going to respond with any sense of urgency to that order. It will haunt them for the rest of their days. In the meantime, Custer has stayed up on top of the bluffs and come to the north with 5 companies, 210 men. He tries to go down the ridge into Medicine Tail Coulee, a mile and a half out in front of us. You can drive right to it. It's a freeway into the Cheyenne camp. But Cheyenne warriors slam the gate closed. They have to fall back up the hill. Custer unites on Calhoun Hill at the end of this ridge line, past those cars on top of the ridge where it rises up, 3 clumps of green brush on the end of the ridge line. That's Calhoun Hill. James Calhoun, Custer's brother-in-law, digs in, forms a skirmish line facing the south with about 80 men. And for 45 minutes, he flails away trying to hold the warriors back. In the meantime, Lieutenant Colonel Custer rides out beyond us with probably 80 soldiers, 2 companies. Goes out to the current cemetery down off the bluffs. We believe he's going to try to cross the river, capture women and children and non-combatants who have run to the north, capture them and the fight's over. This is based on Indian warrior survivor testimony and archaeological accounts. But he cannot get there. He has to fall back. When he comes back up to the cemetery, he gets up on top, drives warriors off the top of the hill just about the same time that Gall and Crow King and Toon and Low Dog, after pounding Reno into hopeless submission, peel off of him, roar down and slam into Calhoun Hill like a red tidal wave. Company L is blown off the ridge. James Calhoun is dead. Tom Custer, 2 Medal of Honor recipient, Captain Tom Custer, C Company, they charge down the ridge 700 yards out in front of us, driving warriors back. But a Southern Cheyenne chief named Lame White Man gets off his horse in the middle of battlefield, turns around to the warriors and says, "Come back! There's not that many soldiers. We can kill them all." They rally up behind Lame White Man. They storm back up the hill, crash into C Company. They snap buffalo blankets and scare their horses off and capture guns and ammunition. Most of C Company boys are now unhorsed. They run to the top of the ridge. Crazy Horse flies down the west side of the river, crosses right below us at deep ravine, 250 yards out in front of us. He flies up the ridge with 800 warriors behind him. He goes right over the top of the hill where that van is on the crest of the hill. The other warriors hang back. Look up here, folks. Look up here, 200 yards out in front of us. They hang back. They're hesitant. They hear gunfire, but Crazy Horse has no fear. Bullets and arrows in his vision can't harm him. He goes right over the top of the hill where that motorcycle is, charges down onto Captain Miles Keogh, the Fighting Irishman. 40 dismounted soldiers fire at Crazy Horse all at once. Boom! They don't hit him. They reload. A second time, White Bull goes over the top of the hill. They don't hit him. Boom! Another 40 guns. Crazy Horse, White Bull, inspired the other warriors. They pour up over the top of the ridge, charge down onto Keogh, smash into Keogh, and grind Keogh into Gall, who's overrun Calhoun from the south. Company I is blown off the planet. I Company extinguished. The other side of the ridge will tell the story. The markers look like corn. Keogh is dead. 3 days later, they'll find Keogh's body, stripped to his socks, but unmutilated. He's Irish Catholic. He's got a big medal around his neck from the Pope. They don't mutilate him like the others. His horse Comanche will survive this fight. 11 battle wounds. The horse is nursed back to health. Follows a command, taken back to Fort Lincoln. That horse will live another 15 years. Became known as the only survivor. Keogh is dead. Calhoun is dead. C Company is crushed. On top of the hill, Lieutenant Colonel Custer digs in, and now the full fury of 2,000 warriors bears down on the last stand hill. Folks, look up there. 136 years ago, the sky was raining arrows. Gunfire, smoke, yelling, screaming. screaming, cursing, more ammo, more ammo. Gall said, the soldiers were fighting good. They were loading and firing and loading and firing, but then about 35 of them or 40 bolted down the hill 100 yards out in front of us, 6 or 7 on horseback, the rest running. We chased them down in a deep ravine and killed them all. 28 men found dead after the battle in a crack in the earth at the bottom of this trail. On top of the hill, it's desperation. 2 Moon, we swirled around the soldiers like water around a stone. The soldiers were fighting good, but then they threw their carbines away, took out their little guns, and tried to kill us. But they shot wildly in the skies. Their horses bucked and shied and pulled them all around. A desperate order. Shoot your horse. Bow! A bullet in your horse's head. After the fight, there's 39 dead horses on the ridge. There's nowhere to run to. There's nowhere to hide. And you're not going home. Warriors get closer and closer and closer. Wooden Leg said it looked like 1,000 dogs in a fight. You couldn't tell one from the other. They asked Gall, how long does the battle take? He said about as long as it takes for a hungry man to eat his dinner. And then, the shots. Quit pumping. Young boys and old men, mounted in the draws of the ravine, stormed the hill on horseback, ride right into the soldiers and pound them to death with war clubs. Then they roared down to meet Reno and Benteen, who'd made a feeble effort to advance to the sound of the gunfire. Drove them back, pinned them down, trapped them for the next 30 hours under siege. Captain Benteen will take over. Or a shell-shocked Reno. It's a groundhog case, men. It's do or die. Dig rifle pits now, and they began to scratch and claw at the ground with cups and spoons and pocket knives. Those rifle pits are still there. 30 hours later, late afternoon, Monday the 26th, the massive village begins to break up, scatter to the south as they detect the advancing military column of Gibbon and Terry from the north. By the time the sun goes down Monday evening, there's not a warrior in sight. Captain Benteen has saved 350 men on top of that hill. 53 dead, 52 wounded. 60 to 100 warriors killed in the battle of the Little Bighorn. It's over.
The whole battle started about 3 o'clock when Reno attacked and was over by 5 o'clock with 280 American soldiers dead and 60 to 100 Indians. They buried the American soldiers where they were found, except for the officers, which they took home. And Custer is buried in West Point. 5 years later, they collected all the bodies around the battlefield and put them in one mass grave under this memorial. And then they put white stones out to mark where they were found. There is some confusion though, because as we said, 280 died, but there's only 249 headstones. There's also a mass burial for the horses that died here. They've also started putting out Native American monuments when they can figure out where they died at. They were mainly buried by their people and not left on the battlefield. Now let's look at the Indian memorial that was built in 2003 to remember the sacrifice the Native Americans did here also to keep their way of life. The Arapaho, Cheyenne, Apasukla, Arikara, and Oyata battled here. This defeat at the Centennial of our nation was as shocking to them as 9/11 was to us during this modern time. There were several Cheyennes still alive 50 years after the battle that fought here. And now it's time to leave the Little Bighorn Battlefield Monument and head to other places. This is the end of this video.